who's here from an agency? Okay. And how many people here are marketers on their own, non-agency, have their own websites? Okay. How many people are advertising with AdWords? Most. Good. Okay, so we're in good company. My presentation is based upon some content I contributed to a book called Google Analytics for PPC that I contributed with my friend Daniel Waisberg from Online Behavior, discussing the integration between AdWords and analytics, talk about specific dimensions and metrics and how they are unique between the AdWords analytics integration, but most of the presentation is going to be talking about analysis techniques. So let's get going. And just kind of a practical guide to my talk. I want you to pay particular attention to the actual slides, and feel free to ask me afterwards for a slide deck, because some of the methodologies that I'll be presenting should be in the slides. So hopefully it's going to be a bit of a hands-on and practical training, things that you can use with your own analysis of AdWords. We're going to start simple and then get more complex. Dimensions and metrics. So dimensions describe data, and metrics measure data. Dimensions are the rows that make up your analytics reports, and the metrics are the columns, okay? Now, with regards to the integration for AdWords in Google Analytics, what's special is that Analytics imports some specific dimensions and metrics that you don't normally have. You do something called auto-tagging. If you don't know how to do, you should check a look at that ebook. It'll tell you how to set up auto-tagging. And once you have auto-tagging, it makes an unbelievably tight integration where the specific dimensions that are unique to AdWords and cost data, which are going to be these metrics here, are going to be present. These metrics are going to help inform us about performance. We're going to, through looking at the performance of the different AdWords dimensions, we're going to know what to optimize, whether we do that through changing campaign settings or through bid management. Okay, so let's take a look at what I consider the main report in AdWords for analytics. This is the campaign report. Something that you'll see quickly is that we have links on the top to quickly segment by device type. Analytics is wonderful because you can quickly tab through different sets of metrics. You can toggle, you can drill down, right? It's very easy to flow back and forth and through your data to a very granular level and look at things on a 10,000-foot view. Something to note about this report is that currently in this report only, the non-mobile, right, i.e. desktop, high-end mobile, i.e. your mobile phone and your tablet traffic, does have cost data there. Now this is the only report that happens. We'll talk about other ways in terms of mobile to optimize performance, but this is the one place that at this time Google Analytics is importing that data. And I want to just point that out when I say at this time. Anybody who's familiar with analytics knows that's constantly changing and constantly updating. So anything that's not present currently as a feature that needs to be there, I expect it to be there soon because they're always updating. Okay? That, I think, was going to be the last time I looked at a standard report in this presentation. Because what you really should be doing is using custom reports. Now, the reason why custom reports are so great is because they'll let you see all of your data in one place. I like to call these the ABCs. This is not my idea. This is Avinash Kaushik discusses a framework where he talks about acquisition, behavior, and outcomes. But ABCs I thought was another way to frame it. It's easy to remember. So in a custom report, here we have visits, cost per click, cost, right? These are your acquisition metrics. Things that might describe behavior. Actually, this is an old side system mistake. B, pages per visit or bounce rate would be good, like behavioral metrics. E-commerce conversion rate, per visit value, ROI, revenue. These are going to be your outcomes, your conversion metrics. So that B is supposed to be a C. Sorry about that. And you see in this report, I'm drilling down. Again, I can look at the big picture of my campaigns, but I can go all the way directly to the keyword and to the match type. So that was that report on the left. Something that you might have noticed when I showed that report, I only talked about the big goals, the macro conversions, the revenue, the e-commerce conversion rate. But for a website, and it's the process that people go in terms of actually becoming a customer, converting, whatever your conversion goal might be, there's other important touch points, and we're going to call those micro conversions. Now that can be a newsletter sign up, an online chat, an add to cart action, even though they might not have bought during that visit, social share, a phone call, right? Any of these things that users might take that bring economic value to your company, right? That is things that we should also be tracking in Google Analytics. So I'm going to zoom in, right? The visits, percent new visits are the acquisition metrics. Things like pages per visit, I created a goal, and time on site, I created a goal. Those would be behavioral metrics. And here's a list of some other, for this particular company, I wanted to see some micro conversions, right? These are things that, did they view a product page? Did they put something to their cart? Did they call or chat? Did they contact me in some sort of way? Okay. So now we're going to take that macro conversion custom report, right? And put it, this is what it looks like. You see on your left, you have your A's, you have your acquisition, then in your next column, you have your B's, right? Your bounce rate and pages per visit, and then you have your other conversion metrics. Now, so I wanted to optimize this sort of campaign, right? One way that I might start is look at a behavioral metric. I might want to look at bounce rate. So I took all the campaigns, I sorted by bounce rate. But the problem that you see here is that just sorting by bounce rate is not super helpful because there's a lot of irrelevant campaigns that kind of float up to the top because they have very little visits. Volume is an important consideration in business, right? So how do we get these folks out of there? Great method to use in Google Analytics is weighted sort. Okay, weighted sort applies an algorithm to your data to make only the really important metrics rise up to the top. So let's take a look at over here. I did the weighted sort, and I saw that one of these campaigns, boom, I highlighted. It's hard to see a little bit, but it's 85% bounce rate. All of a sudden floated up to the top, and it had enough visits that I actually consider it important. So I might just want to pause that outright. This other line here also was on the top 10 in that weighted sort. It had high acquisition costs, poor ROI. Look at the ROI is -3, right? Now, just sorting by bounce rate isn't enough. You always have to be looking at things in context. For example, some of the other higher bounce rate campaigns have decent ROI as reported in Google Analytics. So don't say, oh, high bounce rate, I need to turn off that campaign. Just dig down deeper and figure out what might be the problem, because it is actually converting. So we highlighted some problematic campaigns. Another way to sort is going to be actually sorting by ROI. Now we're going to get the same problem that we had by just sorting by bounce rate. Campaigns or ad groups or keywords with low visits are going to be up in the top if I sorted negative ROI. So what did I do? I added an advanced filter, right? Advanced filter on. In this case, I just clicked advanced. I wanted to know by cost, right? Volume, that's important to me. I click apply, and all of a sudden I can find, sorted by ROI, the campaigns that are important. Now I highlighted this particular campaign. Again, it's in my top 10 with poor ROI for a reason, right? Now I'm going to show you why. Even though its e-commerce metrics were poor, right? And even though it actually had a poor ROI, and I did have goal values configured in analytics, I wanted to take a look at the micro conversions. How are those looking? Maybe this is an upper funnel traffic, meaning people are coming, they're more of a research sort of type of campaign. So when I do that, I take a look at the next tab, and that one of the great things about custom reports is that you can tab, tab, tab. You can fly through tremendous amounts of data very quickly and very easily and very powerfully. So I look at the micro conversion tab, and wow, all of a sudden some behavioral metrics are higher than the site average. 38% of my users saw more than 5 pages per visit versus the average. I take a look at the product page and the shopping cart rate. Well, actually, people are putting things in their cart. They maybe not be buying from that campaign. Are they coming back with branded traffic? We're going to talk about multi-touch attribution coming up, but Google Analytics is, for now, and it's going to be changing, very much a visit-based analytics clickstreams tool. Okay? So you can see what's happened to users when they visit your site. Now, that's not the full picture of how people use the internet. You use the internet because you go back to a site multiple times, pan session, right? There's a whole process that we do in terms of researching our decisions before we make hopefully the conversion, the desired outcome. But there can be strong indicators through Google Analytics, even within its visits-based framework, that can really tell us a lot. Now, we're going to get a lot more in 2013. I know that, that Jesse's going to follow up and talk about what's coming. But right now I'm going to talk about the product as is so that you can at least have something to go home with for the next couple months before the next version really begins to roll out. Okay, now we're going to move on to optimizing keywords. Something that's critical to keep in mind in Google Analytics is that a keyword in the AdWords report does not contain match type. Okay? A keyword in AdWords always contains match type. So if I just look at keywords, I'm going to put look at the bottom row, right? Just the keyword. I don't have a secondary dimension, right? I see the number of visits, the cost, its ROI, right? But I can't make decisions based upon that because I don't know how to bid. Is that my keyword in broad match? Is that my keyword in exact match? When I apply a secondary dimension of match type and I look at the difference between, let's say here, phrase and exact, we have a much different story. The phrase match is spending more money and it's having a lower return on investment, where the exact match is really where I want to be. Okay? So always remember to segment by match type when optimizing keywords in AdWords. We talked about match type a little bit, right? Who knows the four match types that are available in Google AdWords? Yeah? You do, okay. Broad, phrase, exact, and? Huh? And fuzzy, you said? Modified broad match, right? Where in Google Analytics, you'll actually get that plus in your reports. It doesn't, you'll see that's going to be a different type of keyword. In any case, with the exception of exact match, we really need to know what are people querying, because this is a great way to make money with AdWords, is to cut wasted spend and to reinvestment on things that work. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the matched search query report. Now, at this time, the matched search query report does not include AdWords cost data. There's no AdWords specific metrics, right? This is a lacking, right? This is something that we need as advertisers. Now, how much am I spending? I'm going to show in the next slide that we do have that data. But even without that data in analytics, we can still look at performance metrics in analytics that can inform us about how these matched search queries are doing. Something that you might notice in your reports are not set, right? Not set means that that data is just not there. Now, it's going to not be there for a couple reasons, right? The most common is that's display network. There is no keyword that's getting passed in. It's content network, it's display ads. The other reason is that, let's say iOS 6, that searches done in iOS 6 are going to strip the refers completely. So even though, because there's a gclid ID that's going to match the session, right? There's no match search query for Google Analytics to read from the refer. Okay, so you'll see something that says broad match, and you say, well, what's the keyword? Oh, it's not there. How could broad match not have a match search query? The answer is because they're searching from a mobile phone, an iPhone. Okay? We're jumping now into the AdWords interface. Go to the Keywords tab and drop in Keywords Details, right? Select your search terms, and then you're going to see the number of impressions, only for things that have been clicked. But if the keyword has received the click, you're going to see the number of impressions, the number of clicks, and the cost. And you take these two types of data and put them together. Okay. Here's how I would drill down in terms of keyword optimization. Match type, into keyword, into search query, take a look. The A, B, C's are all present in that custom report, right? Wow, so I'm looking at my broad match. That's where I want to drill down. I'm looking at its ROI. I do a weighted sort by bounce rate. I found 2 keywords that aren't performing so well. I do a search in Google. I said, what's going on with these hickory handles? Well, are people searching for handles that go into a drawer, like a cabinet? Or is it an axe handle made of the type of wood called hickory, right? Now I have an opportunity to put some negative keywords in. Positions and bidding, more information about how to optimize your keywords. This is my own study. It's not a scientific study. It's just I had access to a decent amount of data, 37 million impressions on Google.com. And you can see that if you're above the search results, your CTRs for a lot of these terms are much, much higher. Obviously, you have to segment branded versus non-branded, but even for non-branded keywords, it's about 10 or 20 times the CTR if you push yourself up to the top. So how do we figure when to boost our bids? Here, the ABCs, acquisition, behavior, conversions, right? I take a look at what I'm looking for here is something with a high number of impressions and a low CTR. Okay? In this case, I actually sorted by ROI because I'm looking for something that's working well. So what did there's a report. You can keep it in mind for later. What I found is that the right-hand side, the reason it had low CTR because the right-hand side is what had all these impressions. What's my dimension? Ad slot and ad slot position, right? The ad slot is what we're looking at here. Is it above or is it on the right-hand side? Very powerful AdWords dimension in Google Analytics. So now I'm getting a good ROI from both of these, from this keyword or from this, in this case it's a keyword, boost the bids. Okay? This report here that you might be familiar with, your keywords position report, by itself is not particularly helpful because it's not segmented by match type. Again, we need to know the match type. So one way to get the match type into Google Analytics that you can segment by is by using something called value track. Right? Apply parameters to your URLs, and in the destination URL, it will automatically show you the type of match type. Now you're going to have to do something with this, either most likely with filters and separate profiles. But I put or here, meaning either take that information in a different profile and look at it in your landing page, or take that from the landing page URL and push it into your page title, or put it into a user-defined value. You're going to have to use filters and you're going to have to do something with it, but then in your profile, you'll be able to segment by match type for those visits. Something you may have noticed in my custom reports is that I mentioned things like pages per visit and time on site. And we call these engagement goals. It's just a term that they use in the industry. It's a very loose term, right? Engagement means visit depth, time on site, but really you should see it as a stepping stone to visitor frequency. Okay, what do I mean? Let's say that I have on the top, this is display network, right? Like the keyword is content targeting for the keyword, had a poor ROI. But in this case, when I take a look at that goal that I created, it has higher than average user engagement. Now this is an indication that somebody might be earlier in the buying cycle, okay? So we can still use standard reports to get this sort of information. But now we also have multi-channel funnels, which we're going to talk about shortly in the presentation, as a way to double check that. Is this true? Is this really upper funnel traffic? Well, I can know that sort of information using multi-channel funnels, and we'll talk about it specifically for display. Here's one way that I like to choose page depth and time on site goals. I take a look at, let's say I set a goal for shopping cart ads. I want to know how many people are adding to the cart on their visit. Then I apply that advanced segment to the engagement reports on the audience section. Okay? Use these reports. They're very powerful, the frequency and recency and engagement. Now I see that 90% of my visits happen, of the visits where somebody added something to the cart, I see that 95% added something after 5 pages, so that's why I chose you as my engagement goal. Okay? Again, this is the world that we're really living in, and we're going to talk about how to leverage these sorts of pan-session analysis more shortly. Until now, I've spoken mostly about optimizing campaigns, optimizing keywords. Those are the main dimensions, right? That type of optimization is almost always going to be bid optimization or pausing, right? You're going to turn something on, up the bid, lower the bid. There's other specific dimensions in AdWords that are going to tell you how are you going to set your campaign settings, like your network, which devices, your ad scheduling, right? We're going to start with network. So for the placements dimensions that are available currently in Google Analytics, we do not yet have AdWords specific metrics. We don't have that cost data. But as I mentioned before, we can still drill down into the dimension based on KPIs or performance data to determine, how to optimize these. Now, it's amazing the level of data that you can get simply by setting auto tagging, right? You can look at the actual domain where your display ads showed, right? Here's an example of the way that I would create a custom report to look at the placements, okay? You're familiar with these two on the top, the metrics, right? A, B, C, right? Here, I'm just going to drill down from the distribution network into the placement type, which is going to be managed or automatic, into the actual domain, and then even the URL if I need that level of granularity. So I run the report, I applied I'm looking at my dimensions, and this is what I get, right? A lot of zeros for conversion rate, revenue, etc., right? I hope your reports don't look like this, except, that's interesting. This stuff from eHow happens to have a bit of a lower bounce rate than the rest. Some actual goals are triggered. I wonder what's going on there, right? So now go into your multi-channel funnels, right? You want to see, are you getting results that look like this, that display is leading to direct, that display is going into paid search, right? So I'm going to go back here. This sort of report here, don't use it because it actually doesn't tell you anything. It's just going to be like a lot of pretty colors. The real reports to look at are going to be the assisted conversion report. That's going to give you insights. Here I see display, which is now a basic channel grouping, is giving me much higher assisted compared ratio to assisted to last interaction conversions. That means people are clicking on those display ads coming to my site and then converting later on a different visit. Okay? Here's one of my favorite conversion segments that you're going to be looking for any interaction being display, but you want to exclude that last interaction. So you don't want to see you already know what was happening on the last touch, right? Just from your standard reports. I want to see where are all my assists. Boom. Boom. It's like unbelievable, right? All your assisted conversions, you can see exactly where they're coming through in terms of their last touch interaction. Okay? Something to keep in mind is that direct in multi-channel funnels, okay? I'm not talking about we're talking about multi-channel funnels. Direct traffic in multi-channel funnels is not what happens in a direct visit in Google Analytics standard reports. Google Analytics has a cookie called UTMZ, and that campaign information will ignore direct visits. You just type it into bar and Chrome automatically puts in the URL and you go back, right? It's going to remember your last actual referral besides direct traffic. If you need to, you can drill down even down to the domain. You can see what's making you money, right? But what I had said just a second ago about direct traffic is different now. Coming out in 2013, my understanding is that everybody's going to get access to attribution modeling. And that is really where the money is, right? All you have to do is click last non-direct click, and it matches your standard reports. You click last AdWords click, it doesn't even matter if they came back on a branded search in Google Organic, right? This is really exciting. Because it hasn't been rolled out to everybody, I'm not going to focus on it, but just keep in mind that this is the tool that you want to be playing with. Okay. We're talking about ad scheduling. Okay. Time of day and day of week. This graph, it's a little bit hard to see, shows those numbers are time, the time during the day, and we're looking at visits. Okay, simple volume. how many people are coming to the site when, okay? When I add a second metric, right? I switched the colors, okay, so it's a little bit easier to see. This is looking at per visit value by time compared to visits by time. So even though my peak visits are later in the day, folks in the morning, from 6 to 9 in the morning, are more likely to be making purchases. So take a look at this. What is the take home? Right? I go into the ad scheduling section of my AdWords campaigns, and I'm going to bump my bids between 6 and 9. I'm going to add 25% automatically. I don't have to touch anything. One campaign, boom, it's gone, and I can adjust my bids. Similar with day of week. Let's say I take this, I'm looking at the day part, and I take a look at the tab on the top. Instead of hour as a primary dimension, I look at day of week. Okay? Now, it's hard to look at a table like that. Use Excel. Download your data into Excel. Use conditional formatting in Excel, and it will change that data table on the top to look something like this. Okay? Much easier to find the insights when the data pops out at you. Right? So I see that Wednesday is a bigger day. I can go back into ad scheduling and change my my bids. Now, let's see what this is. This is, let's say I'm looking at day of week. Right? Now I'm looking at day of week. Another great way to look at this, that's just my day of week, and I'm comparing my per visit value. Right? Now notice here, I pointed that this is going to be an AdWords only profile. Use this, right? Create a profile only for your AdWords traffic, a profile only for your PPC traffic as well, right? Because then when you compare to the site average within the profile, this is going to be much more meaningful. How do my ads perform on different days as opposed to comparing against everything lumped together? So in order to get better comparative metrics, create your own profiles. Okay, now let's say that I have a business like this, right? That my weekends and my weekdays perform differently, right? I'm looking at a goal here called phone call, right? How many people are actually calling because we have phone call integration for this client. But the operators aren't there around the clock, right? They're Monday through Friday. So I want to actually exclude the weekends. How do I do that? Practical steps. Create a secondary dimension, okay? Anyone, it doesn't matter. It could be language, it could be anything, right? By the way, I did learn this from my friend Caleb Whitmore, showed me how to do this. Look in your URL bar. You'll see something called secondary segment ID, segment ID, right? And that's visitor type, what I chose. Replace it with day of week, right? Now you have a secondary dimension of whatever you want. You can have a secondary dimension of day of week. I create a filter by that secondary dimension. Before, these are the phone calls. After, it excludes the weekends, right? I look at it from a weekly perspective, right? Before, 1.49% conversion rate for the phone. Well, during the week itself, it's during the weekdays, instead of the weekends, it's 1.69%. So I can get a different view. Okay. While we're on the topic of time, it's easy to discover increases in terms of trends, increases in Google Analytics, right? Here I'm looking at cost. My campaigns, and I want to see, a lot of people here who do reporting probably notice that they look at year-over-year data. They want to see trends. How do I do quarter-over-quarter? So when I sort, I can sort by something called absolute change. That's a great way of sorting because you're able to see what has changed the most in terms of my cost. You can also sort just to see what is your biggest cost by the regular sort. But how do you find decreases? How do you know what fell? Now that's a little bit more difficult. One method, which I like, it's a little bit hard to do in the UI. You're going to have to click a couple times to make it actually stick, but it works. Switch your comparison. Put your old date in the primary date range and compare to the future. Put your one in the future as your comparison. Now, when you sort, it flips it, and you're going to actually be able to see the changes in your campaign spend, in your keyword spend, all of your metrics really simply by comparing date ranges in a non-traditional manner. Again, it's a little bit hard. You have to click a couple times, but it will stick. Mobile. Okay. This, again, is not a scientific study. This is just, I had access to an account. It's big. This is about 2 billion visits over around a 2-some-year period. I just wanted to see, like, hey, this account has a lot of visits. What's happening with mobile for them? Do this with your own site, right? Take a look at what is your mobile growth like. As we can see, within 2 years, they're going up to 20%. It's going to just grow. So mobile is important. When you're looking at your AdWords campaign settings for your mobile display, are you going to display search on different types of devices? You're going to see this, right? Let me choose. Do I want to show on desktops? Do I want to show on smartphones? Right? Don't do this. Don't have all 3 clicked. You don't want to do that. You want to have separate campaigns for mobile, okay? For your smartphones, because the ads display differently. Users are going to be behaving differently. You want to control your budget, okay? As I mentioned, use those standard reports because it includes cost data. Multi-channel funnels at this point are a little bit less useful for mobile analysis, even with the attribution modeling, because it's a different device, okay? And oftentimes when people are converting, they're going to come back at a different device. But pay special attention to those micro conversions that are happening for mobile, things that might indicate that the person, oh, I'm going to come home and I'll complete whatever I was doing, or I'll do it on a computer where it might be easier to add to my cart or something like that. Make sure also when you're creating these segments for mobile to add a smartphone only. Compare smartphone versus tablet versus desktop. Right now we have tablet traffic. It's a great default segment. Mobile traffic includes tablet. So create a mobile phone only by including tablets, but including all mobile, but exclude tablet. Some kind of related to mobile sorts of analysis are taking a look at by browser. Okay, now this isn't mobile specific, but it's related, right? You want to take a look at which browsers are people. You can really optimize AdWords by saying, am I sending spend and bringing people to my site, but for some reason like Safari just isn't converting? That might be a problem. Maybe I should fix my website and I'll have a better conversion rate because I have some cross-browser display rendering issues, right? You can compare your different traffic sources to each other by browser type. Similarly, screen resolution. I know that when I'm at home, I have a nice big screen and I get a look at a website and it looks very different than if I'm looking on my laptop or looking at a tablet. So take a look by resolution as well. And again, instead of looking at that table, pull it into Excel. Use conditional formatting. It's going to make it much easier to find the red lines of where your conversion rates are lower based upon screen resolution. I believe I'm close to the end of time, so I'm just going to move a little bit more quickly. We're going to talk about location. Now, recently, as in, I guess last week, Google Analytics came up with a new version of their interface, which is going to include in custom reports a map overlay. Here would be an example of a custom report you could use. It wasn't working for me yet, so I'm now in the regular standard report where I add a paid search segment. And I can actually take a look at regions here in the United States. These are states where I have high per visit value. Tough question. Does anybody know what state that is with the darkest green? Nebraska. It is not Nebraska. It is North Dakota. Thank you, Julien. It is North Dakota. Right? Most people didn't know that. Like, I wouldn't expect most people, but I don't personally, as an advertiser, I don't care so much about North Dakota. I hope there's nobody here from North Dakota. It is boring, but it's pretty. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create an advanced filter to make sure that I'm only looking at visits that have enough volume that make a difference. So I want more than 2,000 visits. All the other states that are smaller in terms of my traffic disappear. Now, take this sort of data, download together in a separate data source, publicly available census information about regions, about population, and you'll get great key performance indicators like revenue per capita, or the things that relate to market share and market penetration, right? This location information can be very powerful depending on your business model. And I think I'm at my time limit, so I'm going to stop. No? Yes? No?
Just go on.
Just go on? Okay. A few more slides. I do want to talk about remarketing. Right? Now, the reason I want to talk about remarketing is because with dc.js, which is you can just make a little change to your Google Analytics code. You can get, it's so powerful. This is the first time that, for me, that I've seen visitor level segmentation, user segmentation in Google Analytics, right? This is how you create it. You can get the slide from me later. But it's so exciting. This is really exciting, the fact that we're going to be able to create user segments. And so this is an example of how you could use it to retarget your visitors, whereas as opposed to what we're going to see hopefully in 2013, where we can create these segments directly in Google Analytics ourselves. Couple examples, product cross-sell, right? Take a look for a product category. Here, did somebody buy a conference table? Oh, if they did, set a specific cookie and sell them chairs to go with their table. Did somebody watch a promo video? I know what content you watched. I can have event tracking. You watched 75% of a particular video that I'm aware of. Great. Now that I know you know about my product, I can send a display ad that assumes a particular knowledge. Okay? If you have a freemium product, right? Sign up for free, right? Well, what happens if the person signed up for free but didn't even come back to your site in 25 days? Oh, maybe it's time to, hello, do you want to come back? I know that you haven't been here for a while. It's time to show you an ad. Okay? And I'm going to stop there. Anybody who wants to meet with me afterwards, I do have a couple bonus slides if there was time, but I guess there wasn't time. But thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.